Kulam, and welcome to this lesson on Kabbalistic meditation techniques. Specifically, we're going to be concentrating on the techniques of Tzeruf, Shiluv, and Yichud. These videos that we're going to be doing and are actually a result of a question from one of the students about what is the difference between a Tzeruf, Shiluv, and a Yichud. And I decided to answer this question, but at the same time I decided also to do a video because there were other students that previously were asking the same question, and I thought it was better to do a video or two about these different techniques. And we will start with Tzeruf. We're going to concentrate on Tzeruf today, but at the same time, in the beginning, we're going to do an introduction on these three different techniques. So stick around. After the introduction, we will start with the lesson on Tzeruf, Shiluv, Yichud. Shalom and welcome back. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we're going to be having an introduction on three different meditation techniques that the Kabbalists use. These techniques are Tzeruf, Shiluv, and Yichud. Also, as I mentioned before, these videos that we're going to be having about different techniques of meditation are the result of emails that I have received and questions that I have received about the difference between Tzeruf, Shiluv, and Yichud. And this one specific was done by one student called David, in which he asked, about the difference between these three techniques. I decided to answer the question, but at the same time, I decided to do a video because there were other students that were asking the same question before. And I think it will be interesting to have this in a video and people, can see, what it is all about in a very simple way, even though you're going to see that it's not that simple, that if we are to perform these meditations, it requires a lot of preparation before we do something like this. And when I mean preparation, it's not only spiritual preparation, but also intellectual preparation. You gotta do some study, you gotta do some research, you have to know certain things before you start meditating on using these techniques. Why? Because these techniques involved knowing the Hebrew alphabet, not necessarily knowing the meaning of certain words, even though that will help a lot, but to know the meaning and numerical value of the Hebrew letters. And as we study these techniques, we're going to see why it is very important to know the Hebrew alphabet, and why when you go to the internet, you're going to see these same meditations, the Tzeruf meditations, the Shiluv and Yichud, being done with Latin letters, like the letters that we write the English, Spanish, and other languages. Even though we write them with those letters in order to transliterate what we have in Hebrew, it doesn't work the same. It loses efficacy. Okay, so if we need to learn the Hebrew alphabet, we're going to have to learn the Hebrew alphabet in order to achieve a higher connection with these techniques. So let's start right away so we can have understanding what we're going to be talking about in the next videos. Tzeruf, Shiluv, and Yichud are three distinct techniques used in Kabbalistic meditation and mystical practices. Each of these techniques involve the manipulation and contemplation of Hebrew letters and divine names to achieve specific spiritual goals. So, like I mentioned before, we will have to prepare before we use these techniques, because we're not going to meditate just in a name. For example, meditating on the 72 names of God, there's the internet is flooded with the name Samek, Aleph Lamed, Sal, as the name for getting rich or getting financial help and things like that. But it doesn't work like that. These are not genies in a bottle that we will, get what we want. It requires preparation. It requires certain kind of idea of what is the goal behind this. Because if we're gonna be meditating for the purpose of gaining material things only and for our egoistic nature, then what we're doing is the contrary. We're not helping ourselves advance or connect to anything. What we're doing is we're doing a disfavor to ourselves and also to what these meditations are supposed to be doing. Okay, so let's start talking about Tzeruf. And how do we know that Tzeruf is a technique that was used in ancient times? We have in Proverbs a allusion to it, when it talks about for silver the crucible, for gold the furnace, and the Lord tests the mind. On Proverbs 17 verse 3, he said, Matzeruf lekesef, for the silver the crucible. And Tzeruf basically talks about this combination, this permutation that we are going to be studying. It involves the permutation and combination of Hebrew letters to uncover hidden meanings and spiritual insights. Those who practice this type of meditation and these various combinations of letters, words, and divine names can achieve higher state of consciousness and mystical experiences. And this technique is based on the belief that the Hebrew language has a divine origin and that its letters and words contain profound spiritual power. As Kabbalists or as students of Kabbalah, we need to understand that the Hebrew language is considered holy because it is a language. It is not only the language, it's the vibration through which the whole universe was created. Each letter is a vessel, is a kli that contains certain kind of light, vibration. And this vibration, when combined with other vibrations, create the universe. That's something that if you study the Sefer Yetzirah, simple, small book, but very deep in its teachings, we're going to see that this book is based exactly on that, on combinations of letters and how these letters will create certain things in the universe. What is the purpose of using the Tzeruf? The purpose is to connect with the divine essence of the Hebrew language. So it will help us understand each letter. Each letter will actually give us or reveal to us their hidden light, because they're vessels. Okay, the letters are vessels. So we are going to reveal through these letters that hidden light within them. We unlock spiritual insights and revelations. We attain higher levels of spiritual awareness and enlightenment. And this is just using the letters. And then we're going to see, there are certain things that we need to keep in mind. And I want to make sure I cover that in this lesson, so people don't think that just by looking at these letters and scanning them, like sometimes we practice, just by scanning them is not enough. When we're doing the Tzeruf, we need to concentrate. We need to have in mind an aim, a will, a connection to those letters. and the combination, or the word, or the acronym, which we're going to see in the future, these letters are forming, or what is the idea behind that group of letters. Now, Shiluv, Shiluv means interweaving, integration, like it's not mixing them, it's basically like putting them together, just like a braid. You're basically interweaving these letters. This technique involves interweaving or combining different divine names, phrases, or concepts to create a harmonious and powerful spiritual structure. It often includes the integration of different aspects of God's name or attributes to achieve a balanced and unified spiritual focus. People that practice, or the Kabbalists that practice, meditate on these integrated combinations to draw closer to the divine and to harmonize different spiritual forces. The purpose here is to create a unified and balanced spiritual energy, to harmonize different aspects of divine attributes or names, to enhance spiritual protection and healing. So here we have different things, right? The other one's to achieve enlightenment, to achieve connection. Here is to balance our spiritual energy. We need to harmonize these aspects in our lives, that only through this Shiluv, this interweaving and integration of letters, we can unlock that kind of, if you will, power within us in order to heal ourselves and protect ourselves. And some people also, and I've seen books saying that also this method helps in physical protection as well. And I leave that to you to prove me wrong on this. I haven't actually seen any Kabbalists, that real, like authentic Kabbalah, that says that, even though it's practiced among many Kabbalists, depending on the tradition, the teacher of Kabbalah, you're going to see different opinions. But in my opinions, physical protection and healing comes from spiritual healing and spiritual protection, because everything in our physical reality has its roots in the spiritual realm. What we're doing, this physical body, our language, our actions, and everything, are just the branches of these spiritual roots. Okay, so if you're doing it with the purpose of physical protection, make sure you have also this will connection with the spiritual aspect of it as well, not just looking for physical things, right? Now, the Yichud, or unification, is a technique that involves the unification of divine names, concepts, or attributes to achieve a state of spiritual oneness and closeness with God. Practitioners focus on concepts of God's unity, often contemplating the interconnectedness of various divine aspects. Meditations often include visualizations and recitations aimed at merging individual consciousness with the divine. So this is Yichud, basically, is not only where we're uniting divine names or concepts, as it says here, is also a practice in which, by doing that, we're also uniting our spiritual self with the higher self. And in this way, we connect with the oneness of the universe and the Creator. So this is something to keep in mind when we are doing these techniques. So, like it says, the purpose to achieve the state of spiritual oneness with God, experience the unity of all creation in the divine essence, and to attain profound spiritual transformation and enlightenment. And in my personal opinion, I think this is one of the most profound techniques if you want to feel that connection with the Creator and everything around you. but also is the one that requires a lot of preparation, a lot of not only physical preparation, spiritual preparation, mental and emotional as well, because this is a technique that will actually reveal things that not necessarily a lot of other human beings around us are ready to hear from us. If we describe these things that we see or hear, they will not probably believe us. They might just think that we are kind of like crazy, because it's hard to explain this oneness with everything else. There's no words that can actually describe um, these experiences that we obtain with this Yichud. All right, so that's a simple introduction to these three methods. These methods are going to be covered in depth. The first one that we're going to cover is going to be the method of Tzeruf in this video, and then we're going to dedicate another video to the other two methods. So in this one, what we're going to do is we're going to concentrate on the Tzeruf, and then we're going to talk about certain things that we need to keep in mind when we are doing these exercises, okay? So let's start with Tzeruf. So Tzeruf is a Kabbalistic technique of letter permutation, involves various methods to uncover hidden meanings and achieve spiritual insights, as we mentioned before, right? So how do we know that this is an ancient technique? Like I mentioned before, in Proverbs 17, verse 3 is mentioned, about this Tzeruf. And it's also mentioned in the Talmud, where we are going to see that the Talmud talks about this Tzeruf as well. So you can see it. And it says in the Talmud, Rav Yehuda said that Rav said Bezalel knew how to join the letters with which heaven and earth were created. And Bezalel led Tzeruf, right? From where do we derive this? It is written here in praise of Bezalel, and I have filled him with the Spirit of God, in wisdom, which is Chokmah, in understanding, which is Da'at, in knowledge, and all manners of workmanship. And it is written there, with regard to the creation of heaven and earth, the Lord, by wisdom, founded the earth. By understanding, he established the heavens. And it is written, by his knowledge, the depths were broken up, and the skies dropped down the dew. We see that wisdom, understand, and knowledge, the qualities with which the heaven and earth were created, and all found in Bezalel. So, why this verse from the Talmud is important to us? It is important to us because here it's telling us that Bezalel knew how to do this Tzerufim, right? He knew how to join these letters, and it was this kind of Tzerufim that he knew that helped him build the tabernacle in the desert for Moses. Not only that, then we see that he's talking about the Lord by wisdom founded the earth, by understanding he established the heavens. So wisdom is Chokmah. And Chokmah, the earth is a foundation, and understanding is an establishment of the heaven, right? Understanding is Bina, and the heavens is Seramping. And the letters, as we know it, the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, it is said that they're contained after Bina. After Bina, we're going to see these letters appearing and creating what we call the 7 days of creation. Okay? And this is basically what this is telling us, that Bezalel knew about this secret, and he knew how to use these letters in order to create the tabernacle according to this blueprint that is in heaven and earth. All right? So, very interesting things to keep in mind. Now, the Sefer Yetzirah, also known as the Book of Creation or Book of Formation, is one of the foundational or fundamental works in Jewish mysticism, particularly within the Kabbalistic tradition. It is a brief enigmatic text that is traditionally attributed to the patriarch Abraham, though its actually authorship and date of composition are subjects to scholarly debate. It is estimated that it was written between the 2nd and the 10th century CE. But regardless of whether this book was written by Abraham or not, this book has certain secrets about how this combination of letters, how this letter came to be, how this combination of letters created basically the universe as we know it. So we're going to see this book is divided into certain parts. Creation and cosmology, right, in which we're going to see that the Sefer Yetzirah is going to tell us that the universe was created by 32 mystical paths of wisdom that consists of these 10 sephirot, or spheres, or number, and 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, all right? Then it's going to tell us that about the sephirot, and it tells you that there are 10 emanations which God interact with this world, right? These sephirot represent the divine reality and in the universe. And then the concept that it will connect the Sefer Yetzirah to Tzeruf and the Yichud and the other different techniques of meditation that we're going to be studying. The Hebrew letters, the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, are seen as a fundamental building blocks of creation. The Sefer Yetzirah describes how these letters can be combined in various ways to form all things in the universe. Right? This is how we're going to see when these letters are formed, that they're going to form not only the planets, but when they're combined also they form, you know, the south and north, the east, the west, and other things. And that's a secret that the Kabbalists used in order to achieve different states and bring down these different revelations that we have today in Kabbalah, right? And it's still happening. There are still Kabbalists are still doing that, bringing down this light. Also, like I mentioned before, this combination tells us about the elements and the directions. So it tells us about the divisions of the universe into various elements such as air, water, and fire, and the directions, right? The 6 directions: the north, south, west, east, up, and down. So this is the Sefer Yetzirah. So this is a book that is very important. There's a version that I have basically 2 different versions in my library, and these versions are the version that I have for the longest time, since early 90s, of the Sefer Yetzirah in Spanish. This version is the Isidore Kalish, which was the first Sefer Yetzirah that I got. And the other version that I have is the version from Ari Kaplan, which is a more in-depth version and very scholarly and well done. You know, if you want to go in depth onto the Sefer Yetzirah. However, there's no techniques there of meditation or anything like that. It's just a commentary on the Sefer Yetzirah, what the Sefer Yetzirah actually is trying to describe, right? And then you're gonna see other Kabbalists as well in the past. You know, they have these commentaries on the Sefer Yetzirah in which they go into this Tzeruf, they go into these things, even to the point of creating a golem, which is an artificial human being, kind of like a robot, but made of organic matter, right? Now, Tzeruf, right? In order to understand Tzeruf, we need to see examples. So we're gonna see a few examples. And here, the first example is the permutation of divine names. And for this, we're going to use the tetragrammaton, better known as the Yod-He and the Vav-He, which is one of the most profound examples, right? The 4-letter name of God. And by rearranging these letters, the practitioner can meditate on different aspects and attributes of the divine. For example, you can have the letters just like here, Yod, He, the Vav, and the He, and like right here, and then you can change the letter, the order of the letters, and meditate on the different aspects of these different changes of these letters in the Yod, He, Vav, He. And we're gonna go, more in depth later, but it's just basically Yod, He, Vav, He is basically Yod, it will be Keter, the He will be Chokmah Bina, the Vav will be Serampin, and the last He will be Malchut. Or like some people will say, the tip of the Yod will be Keter, the Yod will be Chokmah, He will be Bina, Vav will be Serampin, and the last He will be Malchut, which is the version that I follow, which is the tip of the Yod is Chokmah, He, Bina, Vav, Serampin, and the last He is Malchut. And then you rearrange these different aspects and meditate on the first He with the Vav, and then the Yod and the He, and basically the combination of Bina with Serampin and Chokmah with Malchut, and what that will mean, and in depth. It's really hard to explain here unless we just have a class about just this kind of permutation, right? But there's another kind of permutation. That's one that has to do with the alphabet, and it's about alphabetic sequences. Permutations of the Hebrew alphabet itself can be used for meditation. For instance, you're arranging the letters of the first three letters. Aleph, Bet, Gimel can yield different combinations and insight. For example, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, and then Aleph, Bet, Aleph, Gimel, Bet, and then the Tav, which is the last one, and doing things like that, But once again, you need to know the Hebrew letters, their meaning, numerical values, and things like that. And this will help you have a deeper understanding and insight into what these permutations are all about. Okay. Now, this is one that is very interesting. I sometimes use it myself. Psalm and sacred text. Psalm 119, this psalm is known for its acrostic structure, where each section begins with a different letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Practitioners might permutate these letters to explore deeper meanings and connection within the text. Example, permuting the letter in the first verse of each acrostic section. Okay, and we're gonna see this in later and also in other videos as well. There's also a meditation specific words. Specific here we got the word chesed, loving kindness. You permutate the letters of this word and you can meditate in various aspects of loving kindness and its manifestation. For example, this is the word chesed, chet, samek, and dalet, and then you can put different letters. You can see here the shin, the dalet, and the hey. So you're changing the samek by the shin, right? Because that's has this sound of wind, right, and fire in there. So, and that's basically what you're doing. You can do this type of exercise as well. Also, there's divine names with numerical equivalents, like Elohim. Practitioner may permutate the letters of this name to uncover different numerical values and the corresponding meanings, as each Hebrew letter has a numerical value. Example permutations: Elohim, then you change it to Amahiel, Mechael. And believe it or not, when you do these things, I remember studying the letters of the name Elohim and the numerical equivalents of these letters. And in this meditation, you will find that there's pi, 3.14. Pi is here. And also remember, Elohim is also the same numerical value as Teva, which is the word for nature in Hebrew. So it's very interesting not only to move the letters around, but knowing the numerical values, you can connect with this name with other words in Hebrew that will have the same numerical value of this name as you rearrange the letters all around. So what are the practical use in meditation of Tzeruf, right? The Kabbalist usually will follow the following steps, right? They select a divine name or sacred word, choose a word, phrase, or name that holds significant spiritual meaning, right? So they say you choose Genesis 1, right? Verse 1. Then you permutate the letters, systematically arrange the letters to form a possible combination. So this is something that there's a whole book written about it. The word Bereshit in Genesis, Bereshit chapter 1, Genesis 1, verse 1, first word. You rearrange these letters in this word Bereshit, and you will find a whole bunch of different words that are revealed as we rearrange these letters, right? Then you contemplate each permutation. You meditate on the meaning and spiritual significance of each permutation. Reflect on how each combination reveals different aspects of the divine in the concept being studied. Okay. Then you will record the insights. You're gonna be keeping a journal of the meditations and any insights or revelations that occur during the process. You want to know, if because you want to look back. This is like having a diary of your meditations. You want to see what insights you have, because these insights might be, things that are new revelations, and sometimes they can be confirmed by continuing to study Kabbalah, and then you understand, I knew about that, and I didn't even read that book before, but it was revealed to me through this meditation and things like that. So it's very interesting. I think the easiest, and you can find this information in YouTube, in Google. It's very well known about the word Bereshit, in which different arrangements of this word can give you different meanings, different words. Bereshit, Barashit, created six. But the word Bereshit also can mean, that Bereshit with beginnings, right, and things like that. So it's very interesting. Just look it up. Because we don't have time here to give you that long example, but look it up yourself. It's a way also to learn is doing your own research. Just don't listen only to what a Kabbalist is teaching you, but you need to find yourself the sources that the Kabbalists give you, in order for you to also reach that level of understanding. So the next thing that we're going to see is that we're going to have an example here, as I mentioned before, of how can you do a tzeruf with the name of God, the holy name of God, the Yod-He and the Vav-He. So we're going to start with the initial permutation of the Yod-He, the Vav, and the He. The second permutation, then, what we're going to rearrange it is as He, Vav, Yod, and He. The second permutation, we're going to do it as Vav, Yod, He, He. The third permutation is going to be He, Vav, He, Yod. And you will be amazed, because you can do more permutations as well. And each month, if we are following the Kabbalistic calendar, there's a permutation of this name for each month that you can actually meditate. So you don't have to actually guess it for that month. It's given to you by the Kabbalist, which permutation corresponds to which month. But you can do it at home as well. You can permutate this ineffable name of the Creator and meditate in each form, contemplating the different attributes of God that each permutation might represent. For example, the first permutation of the He, Vav, Yod, He might focus on God's existence and being, while another might emphasize aspects of the divine mercy and judgment, right? And the reason for that is that the Yod is considered to be from the side of Chesed, while the Hey is considered to be from the side of severity, right, in judgment. And here we're starting with the side of severity and judgment, right? The next one, we're starting with the Vav. The Vav is the middle pillar, right? The middle pillar that is going to balance these forces. But then what we're going to have is that the last Hey is then put in the beginning. So Malchut, even though it's restricted as well, because it's a desire to receive, is receiving then all these forces, right? Malchut is the last Hey. And even though it has that restriction of receiving, it can receive for itself, which is egoistic, or it can receive for the sake of giving back to the Creator. And this is how we're going to see that now the Yo, He, Vav, He now is kind of like backward. He, Vav, He, Yod, right? Which is like, I receive all this energy, and the energy is within my vessel. But by receiving it within my vessel, I am basically giving back to the Creator. That's the returning light, right? As the Ochoser, which is the vessels of non-egoistic vessels, right? And in this whole meditation, like I said, it's very important that you understand the Kabbalistic meaning behind each letter, especially the Kabbalistic meaning if you're doing this type of meditation on the Tetragrammaton, because you need to make sure that you understand the forces that each letter represent within the tree of life, and which Sefirot or aspects of creation they also represent. Now, we're done with Tzeruf. In the next video, we're going to talk about the other two techniques of meditating with the Hebrew letters. But there are things that we need to keep in mind when we are doing these kind of meditations. And this is something that sometimes you're gonna see a lot of people teaching about these different techniques, but they forget that there's background exercises, preparations that need to be done before you can engage on these kind of meditation techniques. And to keep in mind these things is very important, because they are going to help us connect. And once again, these three terms that we're going to talk about, the Miftah, the Michtav, and the Mashav, are based on the Sefer Yetzirah, specifically in the first chapter and the first paragraph of the Sefer Yetzirah, in which he's going to talk about the where he says, where he talks about Sefarim, Sephor, and Sipur, right? With these three, the mysterious paths were created, right? And they were created with Sefarim, Sephor, and Sipur. And what we're going to see that these three, even though they have different names in the Sefer Yetzirah, they are related to the Miftah, Michtav, and Mashav. These aspects are related to the Hebrew language and Jewish thought, especially in the context of Kabbalistic and linguistic studies. Okay, so this is the importance of knowing the Hebrew letters and their meaning. And you're gonna see Kabbalists that have written about the Hebrew letters, and in these books you're gonna see that they go in length in just explaining one letter, and it's because of this. We got to make sure that we understand this. So the first one is Miftah. Miftah refers to pronunciation. specifically the articulation of sounds in spoken language in the context of Hebrew, right? It involves the correct enunciation of letters and vowels according to traditional phonetic rules. The phonetic and pronunciation, right? Mitzvah encompasses the study and practice of how Hebrew sounds are produced and how they combine to form words. This includes the pronunciation of consonants and vowels, as well as accentuation and intonation patterns. Also, it involves the historical and dialectal variations. It can also refer to the differences in pronunciation among various Jewish communities, such as Ashkenazi, Sephardi, and Yemenite traditions, each with its unique phonetic nuances, right? So, for example, an example of that is if you go to a Ashkenazi synagogue and you hear the word mitzvot, as we mentioned, we say mitzvot, they say mitzvos, right? And it's because the T, they sound like, which is the Tav, right? So we need to understand these variations and how, you know, if the variations within the different traditions, okay? I remember one time asking a rabbi that my wife and I had. We were in this modern Orthodox synagogue for a while before we moved, and I asked the rabbi, you know, if there was anything wrong with mentioning, you know, words with a tav as an S or a tav as a T. He was saying both of them are correct, depending on the tradition that you are practicing, you know, the technique. Both of them are correct. There's no error in that. So if you're asking yourself which one is the best pronunciation or the right pronunciation, I agree with my rabbi at that time. Yes, both of them are correct. Now, michtav means writing or letter. It can have several related meanings depending on the context. For example, the context of script and calligraphy. Michtav refers to the physical act of writing Hebrew letters, often focusing on the traditional scripts used in sacred texts such as Torah scroll, mezuzot, and tefillin. This includes a precise and artistic form of each letter known as soferut, scribal arts. Okay, so this is what you're gonna see when you look at the roll of the mezuzah, that all the rolls, they look the same, right? They have the same big letters and the rest small, especially the Shema, right? Shema, the Ain is very big, and then Echad at the end, the Dalet is very big, and is to make sure that you pay attention to those two letters because they form the word Ed, which is the word for witness. Okay, and this is what it's telling you. You got to pay attention to this thing. You got to understand why it is written in certain ways. Also, the written communication, michtav, also refers to letters or written correspondence. In this sense, it can denote the formal letter or document written in Hebrew. And this is also important because there are things that we're going to be reading, like the Shema and the Ve'ahavta. And if you know how these things are written and why they're written that way, why sometimes you're going to see that some letters are missing in the Torah, but in the modern Hebrew there's an extra letter in there because it's modern Hebrew, right? It's not the ancient Hebrew. So knowing these differences is very important. Now, when it comes to Kabbalah, the Kabbalistic teachings, the written form of Hebrew letters, michtav, holds mystical significance. Each letter is considered to have divine attributes and powers, and the written form is studied for hidden meanings and spiritual insights. One example would be when we study the Aleph. The Aleph is said to be equivalent to the name Yod, He, and the Vav, He. The reason for that is because the Aleph is made of two Yods, and in the middle there's a Vav. So you have two Yods, which is the Yods have the numerical value of 10. So you got 2, that's 20, and then the Vav is 6. 26, that's the same numerical value as the Yod He and the Vav He. So this letter can actually connect us to that name as well, right? And that's there's other people that might say, that Aleph, for example, is actually a Ain, with a Yod, right? And this will give us then a different numerical value that is related then to a different aspect of creation. And this is why it's very important, because then each letter is kind of like a door that will help us. And talking about door, the significance of each letter, right? Bet is house, right? Gimel is camel. Dalet is a door, right? And why Dalet is written in that way, right? Why the Hey is written with a little space, not with a line that is not touching, or both lines are, only one is touching, right? The top of the letter. Yet you have the Het, in which both lines on the sides are touching the top of the letter. So these things are things that have hidden meanings, and it tells us about it. The Zohar has a place in the introduction of the Zohar itself, where it talks about how each letter went in front of the Creator, and they were asking the Creator basically to start the creation with this letter, because this letter has the attributes of certain things, but only the letter Bet was chosen because the letter Bet only means a house, right? Is the letter that is the first letter for the word Bracha. Bracha means blessing, right? And that's the thing, you're gonna see a lot of midrashim about the letters and all that. Some books that I recommend, especially from the Kabbalah Center from Rob Berg, it has 2 volumes on the letters. It's called The Power of the Aleph Bet. I recommend, that if you can have those 2 books that you have them, they're really good. The other books that go more in depth on the letters as well. So also the letters of Rabbi Akiva, if you can have that book. I have it in Spanish and Hebrew. I don't have the English version, but it's also a good book that can help you know more about these letters, okay? Now, Mashav. Mashav is a less common term, but can be understood within specific context. For example, thoughts or reflection. In some Kabbalistic or philosophical texts, Mashav might be used to refer to thoughts or contemplations derived from the root, shav, root, meaning to return or to think. Connection to speech and writing, it can also imply that the integration of thought, speech, and writing highlight the process of how internal reflections, thoughts, manifest through spoken words, miftah, and written letters, michtav, okay? And this is very important in Kabbalah, because thought, speech, and action are very important. Thought, speech, and action, okay? And the writing is an action, and it can be also kind of like a meditation itself, right? When you're doing this kind of research on the letters that you are going to meditate, okay? Now, to finish, let's talk about the miftah, michtav, and mashav. These 3 concepts are interconnected. They reflect the comprehensive process of divine expression through language. The miftah, pronunciation, the spoken aspect, emphasize the power of uttering divine names and prayers correctly. Michtav, which is a writing, it encompasses the written aspect, focusing on the sacred act of inscribing letters with precision and reverence. Mashav, which is thought, is the cognitive aspect, involving deep contemplation and understanding of the mystical meanings behind the letters and words. These concepts, when you put them together, illustrate the holistic approach to language in Jewish mysticism, where thought, speech, and writing as an action are seen as channels through which divine energy flows and manifests in the world. Okay, and this is why it's very important that when you look at what you're going to meditate, you need to not only know the sound of each letter, not only you need to write them down properly when you're doing these different tzeruf and different interchanges of these letters, but also that you know the different meanings, mystical meaning behind each letter, so you can contemplate on these different aspects of these letters as you're changing their positions, just like we did with the practice of the tzeruf of the name of God, right? If you don't know that the yod represents chokmah, that the first hey represents bina, that the vav represents serampin, and the last hey represents malchut, then when you're doing these permutations, you will not understand what you're doing, right? You might confuse this hey with the last hey when this hey is actually bina and this hey is actually malchut, right? As you move them around. So make sure that you understand the meaning of the words, the meaning of the letters that you are meditating. And in this way, you will see that you will have a better understanding of what you're doing as you meditate and use the tzeruf, okay? So now, to finish, let's go and do a small recap of what we learned about Tzeruf. Tzeruf is a powerful Kabbalistic tool that allows practitioners to delve in the mystical depth of the Hebrew letters and words. By permuting these letters, Kabbalists seek to uncover hidden meanings, gain spiritual insights, and enhance their connection with the divine. Each of these permutations open a new window into the infinite complexity and beauty of the sacred texts and divine names. When you have the right intentions, which is something that is very important when we're doing these meditations, you gotta have the right intention. When you have the right intention, these techniques will definitely work. What do I mean with the right intention? You gotta have the intention to not to gain a mystical experience only, or to have a revelation by this practice, but also that you want to connect with the Creator. How you connect with the Creator? By meditating on these aspects and how these aspects are going to help me develop what Kabbalah always talks about, love for other fellow human beings. Because we cannot love the Creator unless we love ourselves, unless we love the other fellow human beings. The Creator is manifested through these other human beings, and they're created at the image of that Creator, right? So if we don't love ourselves, and when I say love ourselves, I mean in an egoistic way, not in a narcissistic way. When we don't love ourselves enough, we will never love the neighbor. And this is why the golden rule says, love your neighbor as yourself. Because if you love yourself enough, you will love your neighbor enough. And by loving your neighbor enough and loving yourself enough, you're loving the Creator as well enough. And that's what all these things are supposed to help you do. It's not about financial gain, about me having a better life and things like that. That will come as a result of you having the right intention, which is loving your neighbor as yourself. Other than that, these techniques will work for nothing. They'll be just mental exercises, and what you will have is a result of just false results. There's people that might say, I have this experience and everything, and those are just illusions. They're not the real experience itself, but that you expected to have a connection, you didn't have it, and you still believe that you have it. And the real connection, you will know that because it will change your life. It will change your life. You will think different. You will be a different person. and people will notice that. You will have a different light on you as well. Okay, so I hope that this introduction to Tzeruf, Shiluv and Yichud is helping you out. Next video we're going to talk about Shiluv and Yichud, and in that lesson we are going then to go in depth about these other techniques. So until the next video, Shalom.